Hey yo, welcome to Beyond the Mat, where it's all about the things and stuff. It's like this and like that, sitting in a lotus seat. We breathe deep from our heads to our feet till we feel inner heat. A little bit of rhythm for your soul, stretching out your minds from your head to your toes. We in our flow state, we don't know no hate. We into feeling great though, so we correlate. Coil snake gonna rise, sunshine. We take our time to appreciate divine grace. It takes place in a pace in them interstates. From a country road down to the interstate, we contemplate this. We here to make this. We here to break this. But we never fake this. We never hate kids. We in the love vibe. Me and my whole tribe, we gonna try to be fly with the sunshine. Hello, all you beautiful beyonders out there. Welcome to the show. Its name is Beyond the Mat, but you probably heard that in the little rap at the beginning just now. This show is brought to you by the idea of trying to spread awareness and awaken the global consciousness. It's also brought to you by me and my wacky artwork. Head on over to jcoleyoga.ca and scroll on down to the bottom where you can find my brain-boggling display of squiggly lines and color that form what others are calling art. That's it. No more sponsors, just me. So head on over to jcoleyoga.ca and support this show by purchasing your very own copy of this so-called art that took me many months to create. Alternatively, you can go to patreon.com/beyondthemat and donate any amount that you feel is right. For each $1 of donation, you are entered into a draw to win, that's right, win for free, a piece of my art of your choosing, any one you want. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is here today to talk about, and I'm so excited, flow states. Paula Biltmore has been involved with the Flow Genome Project and has taken their fundamentals, performance, and writers courses. Paula is interested in habit change and the science behind motivation. She has a functional medicine business, is an educator, a researcher, and lover of science. Paula has a BA in psychology, a master's degree, and PhD coursework in education leadership. And Paula is highly driven to help people level up their lives. So please, a warm welcome for Paula Biltmore.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Woo! Everything's working.
Awesome. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to put a voice with a, well, I don't really have a face.
You have
I have a body.
There's a silhouette of a guy doing yoga.
There is a silhouette of a guy doing yoga.
Which may or may not be me.
I don't think that it is, but nice try.
No, my Warrior 2 looks a lot better than that guy. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Well, I used to have this.
How long have you been practicing yoga?
3 years now, I think. Yeah, 3 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so what's the date? In 2014 is when I started. Like
okay.
full on. And I was living in Los Angeles, and I don't know, just the way the climate is, something changed and I started to feel arthritis. And I had read like years ago that people who have arthritis who do yoga, their arthritis won't get any worse, but it won't get any better, but it'll kind of like, just kind of prevent it from getting worse. And I was like, okay, I guess it's time to start. And then I was like, I'm gonna try it home first, and I tried like YouTube videos, and I don't know, I went through like 100 different YouTube videos, and nothing was like really resonating with me. And then my friend was like, oh, you gotta try yoga with Adrian. And I was like, okay. And I put that on, and to this day, I still follow Yoga with Adrian, like every day.
That's
like
awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, those are intense workouts. That's great.
Yeah. And
So how did you find out about FGP?
through Jason Silva, through
Me
his
too.
yeah, through his awesome videos, Shots of Awe. Those were pretty cool. And
That's so funny. Um, that I'm in the same boat. In fact, I started listening to his videos, and it was right around the time that Stealing Fire was going to be launched. It hadn't been released yet,
right.
and just I was like, this is so up my alley.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And so yeah, you've quite an impressive resume that you sent. You've taken like three of their courses, right?
I've taken
The
Flow Fundamentals, Flow for Writers, and then also their Flow Performance class.
right. And how is it working out for you?
Really great. I'll say that the Flow Performance class really kind of made a lot of the practices and the science behind it, the process, stick with me. Uh, Jamie and Stephen, and Stephen did the Flow for Writers course, and Jamie did the other two courses. And they're both just awesome teachers because they're authentic. They
Right.
know what they're talking about, and from a neuroscientific standpoint, they're just super smart. And that was the reason why I was so drawn to them, was because of the scientific approach that they take.
Right. Yeah, that's what kind of like interests me the most is that because for me, and I mean I've been doing all flow podcasts this week from people from that Genome Project Facebook group, and so I've been talking about this a lot. But for me, I find flow the most in yoga when you get to like that hour, just a little bit past an hour point, the body and the mind
Yep.
merge, and you become one with the universe, and everything melts away, and you're just in this zone.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
the other thing is that I've been a musician, and so on stage performing, the same thing kind of happens. You just get in this like out of body experience kind of thing happening, and it's really cool that way. And yeah, other than that, I was like, wow. So if there's a way that I can like maybe induce flow states, like hook me up,
Yep.
because
There is.
if I don't
There
have
is a
to,
way.
if I don't have to put the
You can have
hour,
it on tap.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, when I started hearing about that guy who brought it to like the Navy SEALs, was it? I believe.
Yeah, Rich Divinity, he and I are personal friends.
Oh, cool. No way.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a
He's an
small world.
awesome human being,
Yeah.
like an amazing human being.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a bunch of their videos and like workshop things they've had online. I haven't done any of like the full classes. I did there was like a free thing they did that kind of like hooked me in a couple weeks ago. And
Oh yeah, that was. I think it was was it most important tasks? Is that what they were having you do, or was
yeah,
it?
yeah, well that was part of it. There was like a list
Yeah.
of there's like a daily list of things to do to
Yep.
optimize your life to be able to quickly get into that flow state. S-
Yeah. So what Flow Performance does is it literally takes that, puts it on crack. So not only do you start changing your habits, because habit formation is a huge aspect of having that flow on demand.
Right.
Um, so they work on that aspect, but they also have specific activities to really help induce flow. And a lot of that is identifying your flow triggers, um, knowing the process up to the point where you experience flow. Because if you look at the flow cycle, struggle, release, flow, and recovery, it literally pushes you through that cycle where you're struggling more gracefully and you're recovering more easily.
Right.
There's a lot of people that experience flow, especially adventure athletes. They really have a hard time, not necessarily with the struggle aspect, but with recovery.
Right.
Is once they've had that flow state, there's almost like, well, it's neurochemically induced, but it's almost like a depression. It's like, oh, I don't have it anymore.
What goes up
I
must
still
come
want it,
down.
but I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, what goes up must come down, I guess. So,
Exactly. So it's understanding that cycle
right.
and understanding how to push yourself through the cycle in a more effective manner. And that was something that really helped me. And they just give you, I mean, it's a toolkit. There's just so many tools that you can access within the toolkit that they have. But if you're doing yoga with that much intensity on a daily basis, then you're going to be really super easy to fit into that priming practice and move you forward quickly so
Huh.
that you can get flow on demand.
Wow. So, I guess the downside, I guess, like in that down slump, like the wave goes up and the wave goes down, by explaining to someone that that is part of it, that's part of the process, like don't get all down in the dumps, don't be worried about yourself. It's going to go back up again. Like it knowing that must like just make the process all that much more smoother.
It does, and I think that once you develop a deeper awareness of what each part of this cycle does for you, you don't just become a flow junkie. You spend a lot of time working. Like for me, the struggle part of the cycle was really hard. And so I spent a lot of time taking more of a deep dive into understanding my struggle and identifying why it was so hard. So as you go through the cycle and you really dissect and look at each part of the cycle, that is what was really helpful for me to begin to integrate flow on a more regular basis. Since I've taken that flow performance class, I have flow 4 to 5 days a week on demand. Like when I want it, I can get it. I know exactly what to do to bring myself there.
Hmm. I hear that runners, like that runner's high, people who run
Hmm.
get into flow pretty easy too. And it's a new thing I started. I started driving a bike, and I've been waiting, and I'm waiting for it to happen, and it just doesn't happen. I don't know if it's. I thought I'm like this is gonna be easy. I'm gonna hop on the bike, go into flow state, and I'll be at my next client's appointment that I need to get to. Like nope, not happening. I think there's just too much stimulus
So,
going on. There's too many cars driving at you, and there's just too much other. I live in Victoria, BC, so there's a huge bike culture here. So like we have a bike trail that cuts
nice.
through the whole city.
I've been there, by the way.
Oh, no way. What were you
Yep.
doing? What were you doing here?
I was visiting some relatives in Seattle, and we just took a day trip and went out there, and it was beautiful.
Hopped on the old ferry.
Yep, hopped on the old ferry.
Cool. Yeah, I need to get my
Yeah, it was really nice.
I need to get my passport back in order again, and I can hop on that ferry again. uh,
Yeah, it is. It's really nice. I mean, I enjoyed my time in Seattle too. It was in the summertime, not so rainy, so that was good.
yeah, that's the thing about this place. It rains so much. There's so many months of the year
Yeah.
that's just miserable. And I mean, I'm coming from the east coast of Canada, from Halifax, from Nova Scotia. So like I
Okay.
escaped the 12 feet of snow and all that to come here. And shoveling. I
So
didn't.
there's an improvement in some respects, right?
Definitely an improvement, but now that I'm here, I'm like, it could be better. It could get better, you know. I could keep going a little further south, you know. And I actually I thought, you know, when I moved to LA, I thought that was it too. I was like, this is it. And when I stepped off the plane and I needed to put a sweater on because it was cold and I could see my breath in October, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't it. I thought I was going to some tropical paradise, and everyone,
LA can get cold. San Diego is probably a little bit better for you, but I lived in the Bay Area for a couple of years and I loved it there.
oh
I
yeah,
love the culture. I love the people. Um, I I spent a lot of time beyond the ridge, so it wasn't cloudy all the time, you know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's funny going from coast to coast. There's so many interesting similarities between not only the landscape but like the people. Like there's a coastal vibe between the people, and because I've traveled all through the center of Canada, all across, and yeah, people are just different on the coasts. There's this like a little more laid back, a little more imaginative, which I kind of link to like when I was a kid growing up. I would just go sit and stare out at the ocean in this
Yeah,
vast
me too.
landscape of nothing, and it's so beautiful. And the
Hmm.
creative mind just like pop, 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 pop goes insane with that kind of stuff when you're just sitting there in this emptiness. So
Absolutely. I'm in the same exact boat as you. I feel the same way. And that's one of the three underpinnings of flow is rich environment,
right.
big nature. And when you integrate that, that's one of the primers for flow state. So when you get on your bike and you're traveling through traffic, you're, unless you really connect with that, I don't know, I would be scared for my life. That would be kind of weird for me. I'm like afraid somebody's going to hit me. But then again, I live in Florida where most people are significantly older and not the best drivers.
Yeah, so they really might hit you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dying on a bike here is a real possibility. It's not a fairy tale.
Well, it's
well, tell me what your goal is for your podcast, because I'm really super interested in that, and I'd love to help you with it, because my core purpose is to really just, and I do some work with FGP in terms of just voluntary work and helping them develop systems and stuff like that, because I really am deeply connected to and feel the need to move this methodology forward, because I think that it's transformative for people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so I started podcasting in 2010, 2011. I had heard the Joe Rogan podcast and I was like, I got to do this. I got to do something like this. And coming from a musical background with all my musician friends and DJs all over Canada, I was like, I have a wealth of friends to tap into who also want to promote their next album or their next gig or whatever it is they're trying to promote. So I would interview those people on my show, and that was it. There was no sponsors, there was no money involved. It was just the thing that I did on the side. And that eventually turned into like a video podcast, and then that turned back into another audio podcast. And I've had like 3 or 4 podcasts, and this is the 4th one here, Beyond the Mat. And so I was walking my dog in the park, and I had met a lady who asked me, she's like, "Do you know anything about podcasting?" And I was like, all right. So she wanted me to like help her make a podcast. And in doing that, in doing the research, I had found this new, like all new systems. So the last time I did podcasts, I used to have to go in and edit my own RSS feeds, manually upload everything. It was very manual, very time consuming. Well, there's systems in place now that with a click of a button, it does it all for you. It's
sure. And
there's so many more podcast networks. Like before, I was only ever on iTunes, and now I'm on 7 different networks, which is really cool. And so just by helping that lady, it's re-sparked my interest in podcasting. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a show. Like, it seems like it's going to be a lot easier this time. And so since I was into like a yoga kind of guy, like a certified yoga instructor, I was like, okay, so it's going to focus less on musician friends and more on like everybody. And so like I have a list of topics from yoga, meditation, nutrition and diets, spirituality, flow state, human optimization, plant medicines, aliens, music, current events, holotropic breathing, personal identity, cleansing, auras, detachment, binaural beats, technology, magic, psychedelics, chakras, kundalini, metaphysics, and the existential dread. So this is kind of like a little list that I just kind of reference back and forth on my show. And then I've been through all of these topics in the last like 7 episodes. And I was like, okay, it can't just be this on repeat every episode. I need to get it a little more diverse. And that's when I hit up the Flow State page there and started trying to find, different people to talk about different things other than all this like hippy dippy woo woo stuff that's been on my show the whole up until now.
Yeah, so I will say I'm into all of that stuff that you listed in your list. And FGP is probably into half of that.
Right.
If it can't be proved scientifically, then they don't touch it.
Right.
So there's a very strong research-based scientific underpinning to what it is that they're doing, which I appreciate.
Right.
I do too. From a logical standpoint, I'm not a religious person, but I feel like, some of the experiences that I've had in terms of conscious awareness and just that oneness that you describe, that lends me to believing that there's something larger than me. Um, their research and understanding the human physiology behind that is intriguing to me.
Right.
I mean, it's just really intriguing what's happening neurochemically in your brain when you go through that.
Right. I don't have the deepest understanding of all of that kind of stuff, but I mean, I'll watch little videos and I'll read blog articles about it that kind of like, I don't know. I have a, I've heard it before. I'm like a monkey trying to draw a pencil in the sand, trying to draw a picture in the sand with a crayon, in explaining this stuff.
So, from a brain science standpoint, Jamie and Stephen go through a lot of this stuff in the videos that they have that are even just free videos. But when you take the courses that they have, they really dive deeply into understanding the neurochemical underpinnings of what's happening during each of those stages in the process. And that's really super helpful. The other thing that they do is they literally will go through the classifications of drugs and what neurochemicals each of those drugs releases. So when I look at the work that they're doing, I see a much more far-reaching implementation or implication for what practices they could be impacting, specifically within the prescription drug world, for things like ADHD. A lot of these practices, in my mind, and from what I'm seeing with people that are involved in this community, can literally move people off of those drugs completely. They've also done a lot of work in the functional medicine realm in terms of understanding lifestyle choice and how that also impacts health and wellness. But I'm just blown away by what it is that they've pulled together through a decade's worth of research around this topic. It's
Yeah.
it's just life-changing.
So how has it in your profession? How has it helped you? How has it changed things for you?
Well, I am by definition, and if you have you been on their website and taken their flow profile?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 4 profile types. There is the hard charger, which is the space jumping pro athlete that will jump out of a helicopter and ski.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Extreme.
these are guys that typically are called adrenaline junkies. But there's that profile. There's the flow goer, which is kind of like your yogi. That's probably your profile, I'm sure.
That exactly is me. Yep.
There is the deep thinker, and those are more like the techie kinds of people who get into flow by really like deep thinking and engaging in thought. And then there's the crowd pleaser, and those are more of your,
And
I think of Burning Man and
right.
and those kind of communitas social experiences.
Yeah, I'm definitely
where you really engage with people.
I'm definitely a cross between the flower and then like the last one for like performers.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So every person that I've talked with is a combination of at least 2. So I am primarily a deep thinker, and then I'm secondarily a flow goer. So where I feel like I've leveled up within my practice of experiencing more flow is definitely within the deep thinking realm. So through a lot of what I've learned in the courses that I've taken with them, what I've found is that, just like anything else, when you're learning a new practice, when you're changing your habits and shifting away from old habits, there is, change is inevitable. And the changes that I'm experiencing and what I talked with you about earlier is that I can drop into flow. I literally can put myself there. So if I have a big meeting that's coming up and I know I want to be in flow when I walk in that door, I will prime myself for that meeting
Right.
because
So how
I
how
know
right,
how to do that.
how would you prime yourself? Like for me, I before going on stage in front of thousands of people, I would just kind of like take a few deep breaths, kind of ground myself, close my eyes, block out everything, and just get centered, and then I would go out on stage.
Sure.
Same thing, teaching a yoga class. You kind of like, you just kind of get into yourself, and then go out there, and it just works. So is that kind of what you do?
So priming practices can differ for everyone. And like I said, there's basically a toolkit. So think of it as a toolbox, okay? And your toolbox and the tools that you use may be a little bit different than the tools that I use to get myself there.
Right.
But yes, that's part of my priming practice. So a big part of my priming practice is morning ritual. And every morning I have a ritual. And you have to understand that my personality type kind of revolts against that. I am not the kind of person that likes to have myself tied down to anything. I want to be and do it. So doing that was really a challenge for me, to have a morning ritual where I wake up and I drink a pint of water and I do my meditation, and then I literally will go through and find at least 3 things, and it usually happens that it's more like 5 or 10 things that I'm grateful for. So a gratitude moment, and I log that. So I'll write down the things that I'm grateful for. And by the way, I have a pictorial representation of this. It's called my power hour on my phone. So the second I wake up to look at what time it is, it reminds me, do your power hour.
Right.
And every single thing that I'm talking with you about has an image, and it's just like a little bit of a collage on my phone. I can send you a picture of it so you can see it. It's really kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
So, and then another part of my priming and my power hour is snuggling. I snuggle with my dogs and give them love and really like get into that space. And then I snuggle with my kids and, get grounded there as well. And then I go on to my most important tasks for the day, which I have at least three things every day that I need to get done and accomplish to feel like, yes, today moved me forward.
Right. Yeah, that's
So
pretty much what
that
I've been
practice,
doing too.
that morning ritual, that helps to set the stage for my day. But the priming practice that I found most profound was priming replacement. So think about yourself going on stage and what you do before you go on stage as a musician to get yourself in the zone so that when you're performing, you're actually doing well, right?
Right.
So do that priming practice and then remove the flow state, the experience that you typically have flow in, and put something else there. So for
Right.
example, let's say that you're trying to write a book. Okay, I'm just going to use this as an example.
I've been trying. Yeah,
you're not
good
a
one.
deep thinker, and that's really a challenge for you. So as you do your priming practice, instead of going on stage to perform, sit down and write
Okay.
and do a replacement for that flow state that you typically experience.
Right. Yeah.
So you're pairing in your mind, you're pairing in your brain, okay, I'm doing all of these steps to prime myself to get into flow.
and then
But
you're
then you're not doing the thing that actually puts you into flow traditionally. You're replacing it with something else.
right. That sounds smart. That is very
Yeah,
smart. Yeah, and I have been trying to write a book too. uh,
that's so funny.
and like Stephen Pressfield says, he had like this morning ritual where he would just sit down at 9 a.m. every day and write. 9 a.m. is writing time. Put all other things out of the way. Do your write or whatever time it is for you. So I've chosen 9 a.m. Seems to work pretty good. And yeah, so I'll just every day I sit down and I try and add a little bit. Sometimes sometimes pages come out and they're beautiful, and sometimes a struggled paragraph comes out. But you know what? The point is to sit down and just try
I
and
know
do
the
it.
feeling.
Oh,
I absolutely know the feeling. Sometimes when I sit down to write, I literally will just, I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to be writing on topic today. I'm writing about something else. And I'll just pick something completely off topic that's on the forefront of my mind so that I can at least flow some words onto a page.
right. Hmm. So
So
you
other
don't always
tools in the
stick.
toolbox, you said that before you went on stage, what was your priming? You did breathing.
Well, there's that, and it's kind of weird because when I'm as it was a hip hop band that I was in, so I was a hip hop artist, like doing rap basically, and
Okay.
so when you get into that kind of stuff, there's these alter egos. Like everybody has a different stage name and these characters
Oh,
that you
sure.
become.
Yep.
So there's a bit of like a meditation where I would like get into character kind of thing. And yeah,
Okay.
that in itself involved like closing my eyes, blocking out everything, deep breathing, and just kind of grounding myself. And within that, I would like, okay, bring on the character now. Here we go, and it would just kind of come into this. I would like almost become someone else, and then you're
Yeah,
just
so
gonna
that visualization practice was huge for you.
right,
There's another practice that Jamie and Stephen talk about, and that's embodied cognition. And this has been a huge shifter for me. And literally, we spend 85 to 90% of our time in our head. Okay? We're constantly thinking about things, analyzing things, and it it puts us in a state of lack of body awareness, lack of connection between mind and body.
right,
So one of the tools in the toolkit is embodied cognition, which is get the hell out of your head and get in your body. And I don't care whether you're a runner or a biker, whether you like boxing or martial arts or yoga, or there's another program called GMB Fitness, which is awesome, kind of integration of yoga, martial arts, um, boxing. It's really cool. It's a really
hmm.
cool program.
Sorry, what's it called again?
But GMB Fitness.
GMB Fitness. Okay, I'm gonna look into that later. GMB
Later,
Fitness.
it's really cool. They have a free trial. You can check it out.
Okay.
But if you're into yoga, especially if you're into the more intense yoga, you're really going to like this. It's a slow build, so be patient with it for about a week because come week 2 or 3, you're going to be dying.
I
It's
like
really, it can be very
I
intense.
like the sound of that.
Um, but their focus is on mobility, strength, flexibility, and adaptability, and using your body, really connecting with your body and using it however you want to use it. If you want to become an acro yoga person, then you have the capability of doing that.
Hmm.
So that was another tool for me. And if you watch people, this is the other thing that I've turned on. Watch people who are public speakers, transformational speakers, coaches, that kind of thing, that get up in front of a live audience. They all have a priming ritual. Every single one of them do.
Hmm.
Um, there was that behind the scenes Tony Robbins film that came out, and he literally, you could see his priming ritual,
Yeah.
what he did before every time getting on stage.
Didn't they have that on at the first of "I'm Not Your Guru"? Wasn't it the first of
Yes.
that? Yeah, yeah. That was the.
Yes.
He's sitting in the.
Yep.
Was he in a cryo tub or he was in a hot tub or some kind of tub?
He was in. It was cold,
Right.
and that's another tool, which is kind of coupled with there's sensory deprivation tanks, float tanks, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
There's also ice baths and Wim Hof breathing. That's another priming tool.
Oh,
So there's a lot of tools that they kind of bring to the forefront to try out. You know,
yeah.
try and see what happens. Music is another huge one. If you know anything about like binaural beats or solfeggio frequencies, um, electronic dance music, that kind of thing.
Yep. Oh, I'm all into
We're
that.
talking about brain waves. Talking about brain waves here. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at music and the music that you're listening to, that's a huge element to getting yourself into that state.
Right.
Most of the music that we listen to today is extremely depressing.
I
The
know.
words are depressing, you know, it's really bad. So
The
if you can kind
notes.
of move yourself away from that habit and start listening to music that is more, either neutral or upbeat, it changes things.
Mm-hmm.
Another tool is being very protective of your time when it comes to social media and notifications. So think about how much of your time you're pulled away if you have notifications on for Facebook and Messenger and Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter and all of these other things that we have in our life now that pull our attention away constantly from what it is that we're supposed to be focusing on for that moment.
Yeah.
So be very protective about your time. It's not about taking away those pieces of your life. It's about monitoring your use. So maybe you check it twice a day instead of 100 times a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you turn your notifications off and really get into a more concentrated state around what it is that you're trying to focus on throughout the day.
Right.
So that's just another tool.
That's the way I look at social media now, as a tool. And it's been months now. I've disabled everything on my phone. I just keep the ringer off. I don't even want to hear a phone call. Like, I remember, because I've been in business since, so my stepfather had a print shop. I started working at the print shop when I was 13. So I've been in entrepreneurial kind of spirit and done all of this, entrepreneur life of self-employment. So I remember the time when you wouldn't, like, we had times of the day when we would check the phone. You would check the phone messages. Like, there'd be message time in the morning, message time in the afternoon. Every little bleep and bloop of somebody trying to contact you, it didn't used to happen that way. And business used to flow a lot more smoothly back in the day too, because you weren't constantly being bombarded with notifications from everywhere. So yeah, I've had my phone shut off for months now. And I mean, people try and call me and they're like, Jay, I can never get a hold of you. And it's like, well, if you leave a message, I'll get back to you when I do my messages.
I did the same thing. I really did. I had a financial practice, and I would tell my clients, and of course part of that is setting expectations with people, but I would let them know I make calls, I don't take calls. And the reason that I do that is when I sit down to make my calls for the day, you have 100% of my attention.
Exactly.
I am completely focused on you and your needs and what your questions are. I'm not dragged in 100 different directions and you've just interrupted me from something that I was working on and now I've got to shift gears. It doesn't work. So those kinds of practices are just smart. They're smart business practices.
Yeah. I mean,
and it helps you level up.
There will be those days, though, when I'm working on something and I'll maybe not on a phone, I'll be doing something on like online, and I might have like Facebook open in another tab, and then you start to see notifications and things are blinking, and it totally disrupts what I'm doing, and it'll be like another client wanting me to do a
rabbit hole,
a different task, and because I mean you click over just to see. Like, it would be ideal if you could have Messenger by itself without the news feed and all this other stuff. That would be ideal, to not get caught in a scroll. Because you go over to check something, or even maybe it's an important business thing I have to talk to somebody only over Facebook. Like maybe scheduling one of these podcasts, for instance. And I'll click over from right quick. I'll be like, because I do graphic design as well. So I'll be working on a graphic design project. And I'll be like, oh, I have to message about the scheduling. So I'll click over to message about scheduling. Oh, what's this? Oh, that's a funny meme. Then you keep scrolling down. Oh, there's another one. Oh, well, now an hour's gone by, and I'm like, oh, I just lost an hour.
You just got sucked in.
I got sucked down the rabbit hole. Caught in a scroll is what I call it. I got caught in a scroll.
That's so funny.
But hey, just going back to what you said about right before we talked about this, so you mentioned the float tank, which I've just tried it for the first time here in Victoria when was that? Oh, on my birthday in March. And
what did you think?
It was amazing. Everything that I dreamed of and more. So I had like the full experience, and like a lot of my friends have tried these and they haven't had it. And so I went in, I laid in there, total darkness. You
Did
have
you
the
do any priming? Did you do any priming? Did you do yoga beforehand or any priming at all?
There was yoga in the morning,
There you go.
and then went into the tank, and then
Hmm.
and I mean they weren't like right one after another. Like
It doesn't matter.
yoga, I do yoga every morning, and
Hmm.
so yeah, that's just part of the morning routine. That's a given. And then we went down to the float tanks, got in there. You have the option to leave the lights on. They have colorful morphing lights that go from green to blue to orange to red, and they just kind of morph in and out of color. But I'm like, I don't want that. I want everything totally deprived. And it was amazing just to float there and feel nothing and the weightlessness. And I remember I was feeling this tension in my neck because I was trying to keep my head up above the water. And then I was like, what if I just let go? And I let go of all the tension in my neck. And you know what? My head didn't sink down beneath the water. So the ears got a little wet at the time, but thankfully they give you earplugs. And after about an hour, with my eyes shut in total darkness, I started seeing like colors start to form. And I was like, oh, like kind of like if you've got your eyes shut and maybe you're like looking at the
Dude,
sun.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They
I know
just
exactly what you're talking about. It's freaking awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's very psychedelic. And they just
Yeah.
started to kind of like happen and these colors and swirls and bursts of things happening and I was like, okay, this is because I have my eyes shut. So I opened my eyes
Hmm.
in the total darkness and it was still there. Like eyes shut or closed, these colors were just happening. And yeah, just the deepest meditative state I've ever been in. And so, yeah, I've only been twice. Went back again. They're quite costly around here. They're like $80 for an hour, or $80 for like an hour and 15 minutes, something like that.
Hmm.
And I think the next step is just to get my own. That would be.
Yeah, they do have them. They have portable ones that they sell that I've seen. Um, but one of the things I wanted to go back to your description of that, because I think that one of the things that I find when I talk with people who have experienced flow or altered states of consciousness, one of the aspects that is always super interesting to me is this whole psychedelic aspect.
Hmm.
And Jamie and Stephen talk about it. They talk about it openly in um, in Stealing Fire for sure, and also in their videos. Um, but I have never done any kind of psychedelic drug or anything like that at all, and I've had these kinds of experiences. So I often find myself in a unique minority amongst the crowd of people that I migrate towards. Um, and it's something that I'm very curious about that. And what I'm curious about is there any piece that I'm missing?
Hmm.
Because I don't think there is.
Hmm.
The description of events and what I've experienced is the same as any person that I've talked with who has experienced altered states of consciousness through psychedelics.
Hmm. Well, I've definitely tried all of them that I've gotten my hands on. And I would say, personally, for me, uh, entering these altered states, like without the use of any external factors through breathing or like meditation or any of this, it's like psychedelics light. It's like a beta version of psychedelics. Uh,
Okay.
through like through LSD, you get these like profound visions happening, and it always has something to do with like your life, very personal and in depth, and you need to be able to unpack that. So I find that when I hear about like kids who try and take these things like more in more of a recreational way, it's like I don't think that's probably right to do. You kind of need a framework of life before you can start like having your brain blasted with these images, and there's a lot of imagery happening, and it always taps back into your own life experiences. So someone who is like really who grew up very religious, who's into churchy kind of stuff, they're going to see a lot of these archetypes coming in that has to do with the framework in their mind that has been built up over the years. And with myself, I was a kind of a movie junkie, so there's a lot of weird movie references being played out within my mind, just being blasted in.
Please don't tell me the Goonies, because that's scary. Or
No,
the Chocolate Factory movie. What was that movie?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh my gosh, that is so scary.
No, it was even scarier because these like whatever this like thing was that was communicating with me, it was like, Jay, you know that movie? This is back. Okay, this is probably my first real time taking LSD back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And this thing that was talking to me, like telepathically almost, was like, Jay, I have to tell you something. Life is like that movie, The Matrix. And I was like, oh, wow. And please explain that to me further, And then it went on to say, like, how everything is an illusion. Everything is not as it seems. And these are not thoughts that I had previously had before. Before this, I was like, oh, the government loves me and everyone's just out for my best interests. And, I was very, like, naive in a way. And it kind of snapped me out of my naivety and opened my eyes to, like, what was really going on in the world. And that's when I started seeing things like corruption in places. I started seeing conspiracies in places that I hadn't seen before. And just this, like, very profound knowledge. And during this experience, you keep having these, like, epiphanies. And you're like, oh, now I get it. Oh, whoa. And then pretty much anything that you set your mind to, just this profound thing happens. And you're like, oh, I get it now. Wow. Okay. Because I feel that you probably already did get it, but like maybe things were being blocked within your own mind. And now that you've removed all these inhibitions and you've opened up different pathways for the mind to fire and get access to, you're like, oh, okay, now I understand that concept. Now I understand this concept. And just through one night of like a 12-hour trip, you can probably learn, I don't know, encyclopedia's worth of life lessons. And I mean, that was just...
Yeah, Jamie describes it as, if you want this quick, this is the way. If you, there are other ways that it takes a longer period of time,
right,
to remove the veil. But it's interesting that you say that. I think because I've been doing this work for so long that I don't know. Maybe I'll get there.
I mean, I don't tell anybody to try and like, I'm like, oh, you definitely need to try this. Like, I mean, it's such a personal journey that I would never try and steer somebody into that path unless they're already on it and they're just kind of like, maybe it's time, maybe it's not time. Who am I to decide? And then other things like I had tried, like magic mushrooms, I guess. Same kind of thing. It's the same. For me, the mushrooms were the same as an LSD trip, only it didn't last as long, and you didn't kind of have as many profundities coming out in the wash. And with mushrooms, you get this really earthy, grounded feeling that everything is alive and everything is connected. And when you look at the walls, and the walls are like breathing, like lungs, and the ceiling is breathing, and everything is alive. Like even an inanimate object like your television is kind of like, you can see
you
this.
become one with the couch.
You become one with the couch. You can see energy lines throughout the room that you couldn't see before. It just kind of opens up a lot more. And so because of that feeling of unity and that feeling that everything is connected and that we are all one and we're all here together, that alone, I totally understand where they're coming from trying to do microdosing of psilocybin to help PTSD sufferers who are just like, their whole life is dictated by triggers. And so by reconnecting with the source energy in that way, I can totally understand how that works. Although I've never tried a microdose of mushrooms, I take the hero's dose of like 5 to 7 grams.
Hero's dose. Is that a metric term?
It's the Terrence McKenna's term, the heroic dose.
Jason Cole's metric.
It's somebody's anyways. Yeah, and I mean, there's just something you feel kind of ripped off when you've only taken a little bit of mushrooms and you're like, this is it, I'm gonna break through, it's coming, and it doesn't go there. Like you're like, this is it, it's happening, here we go, ooh, it's gonna happen, and then nothing, it just fades away. Like,
Anticlimactic, is that the
very,
term you're looking
very
for?
anticlimactic. It's like you're climbing up a mountain and then the mountain just turns into a plateau and you're like, oh, okay, I thought I was gonna get to the top and put my flag in the top, but no, it's just another plateau up here. And yeah, I mean, those are probably my favorite psychedelics. I tried DMT once, and that was a whole experience of just catapulting your consciousness into another dimension. Like you're not even on Earth anymore. You're not in this room. The things you're seeing and the things that are being presented to you are just these geometric shapes that are made out of love, basically. And there's this feeling of this very maternal love feeling. It's wrapping around your whole essence, your body, everything. And there's this voice that's saying, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. And
It sounds like childbirth.
I wouldn't know about that.
I would. I would know about that.
Is that the doctor or the person who's with you? Don't worry.
It's all gonna be okay.
Yeah, it does sound like childbirth in that way. I mean,
Yeah,
the child is getting catapulted into this dimension, and
exactly.
someone's holding
And
your
you're in a
hand.
whole nother dimension.
Yeah, yeah. So, geez, what's kids, eh? The mom life. How's
Uh,
a
that is a huge slice of joy, um, responsibility, challenge, growth. It's probably the most enriching experience that I will have in my lifetime.
oh, I know everybody says that. I don't have any kids myself. My brother has a gang of kids, and I love them because I can give them back at the end of the day. And so I'm one of those
That is
people.
that is a nicety. I will say that.
um,
But it's kind of like taking only a little bit of mushroom, you know?
right,
You never really get there
right. It never got the
because
poopy. I never got
the
the poopy
struggles,
diapers.
when you're going through the struggles with kids, that's when there are pieces that come together and come into the fold that bring forth that richness that you can't experience any other way.
Right.
You
I
know?
guess
And when you're in it and experiencing it, it might not be pleasant at the time, but I have, or at least I try to have some level of objectivity when I'm going through those spots.
right. I like the best is when I'm like with my nephew and I teach him something, and you can see it in his eyes that you've connected, you've gotten through to him, and he's like, oh, okay, now yeah, thanks, man. Like, all right, uh,
Yeah, now reverse that, and he's taught you something, because that's the piece. It's like
oh,
every day I look at these kids and I'm like, holy cow, how did you bring me to this? I learned so much
oh,
from them in experiencing them and the
wow,
questions that they ask. I have a 4, almost 5-year-old and a 14-year-old, so very wide age difference.
right,
So I have a 14-year-old girl going through that cycle of life, and then I have a 4 going on 5, out of toddler phase, but not quite yet done with whining and crying yet. So
woo,
my head is in 2 very different places with each of them.
and they get along good. Do you see the things? Do you see them teaching each other
Do
too? Like,
absolutely. I mean, my older child wanted a sibling very badly, and the younger one just adores her sister.
oh, oh,
I think the
I love hearing those stories because me and my brother used to fight so much. It was just the sibling rivalry to the extreme, the bloody noses and the broken doors and shelves, and it was just a violent rah of just me and my brother fighting all the time. But now we're like
that's
best
something.
friends. It's weird. It just one day it switched, and at that
Yeah.
day was when we smoked a joint together. And we realized
There you go.
it just took it all away. We're like, oh, you can be cool? Oh, you can be cool too? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know you could be cool either. And then we've just been cool. That was it. There's never been a fight again. Um, or maybe we just got older and realized that our silly bickering was nonsense. Kid stuff.
Yeah, I think sibling dynamics definitely contribute to the the work that we need to do as an adult for sure.
Hmm. And I like to look up to my parents too, in a way, like not look up to them, but look at them and what the kind of things that they go through. And I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to try and avoid that at any cost. So, like, my dad,
Hmm.
and he doesn't get along at all with his two brothers because of silly things like, oh, when the grandparents died, oh, you took a ring or something, like just petty issues
It's
that really
deeper
don't
than
mean
that,
anything.
Jason. You know it.
Well, I
That's
don't.
just the icing on the shit cake.
But when you see when you see a grown man throwing a fit and whining like a little kid, and now I'm a grown adult and I'm seeing this happening and it's like, "Wow, you took the picture and I got this," and meh, meh, meh. And it's like, "Oh my God, y'all are like some 13-year-olds like fighting over breadcrumbs." None of this
Hmm.
stuff even matters. Like the other day we were talking about putting it all in a
The stuff
dumpster.
doesn't matter. It's the relationship that they had with their parents that matters. So I look at that, and I used to do a lot of estate planning with my clients when I was in the financial industry. So I saw that come across all the time. And those that could reconcile very easily received the love and attention that they needed from their parents. And those that could not reconcile easily did not receive the love and attention and affection they needed from their parents. So they hold on to the stuff as like that's the only thing I have left of them, or this is it. This is what I have of them.
Hmm.
Um, but if you truly receive what you needed from your parents, then the stuff doesn't matter.
Hmm. Yeah, so that totally makes sense because my grandfather was a military man, very strict, lots of rules, um,
Hmm.
it's never a hug in their whole life, never a touch, never a pat on the back, nothing like that. Very, very cold kind of people. And then something snapped with us, with the grandkids. So the stories my dad would tell, these horror stories, I was like, I don't see it. Like, Grampy's awesome. Like, he's like one of the coolest people I've met. Actually, he's way cooler than you, Dad. Like, I think you need to lighten up, Dad, and see how cool he's become. And it never happened, uh, unfortunately. So I was living with my grandfather for a while when he got sick. I was taking care of him. So we got to like really bond on a different level and hang out for like 6 to 9 months of just him and I just driving around Nova Scotia, going on little road trips, just doing things to make his last times on Earth more enjoyable. And through that, I got to meet the man, and I got to meet like the new person, and not this like
Yeah.
crazy general sergeant rah, everything's rules and strict that my dad had encountered. So it's so weird the way that people can totally shift and become like a whole new person. And then the other weird thing is that those people from the past still look at you in that light from the past. So it's like,
Exactly. As if you can't change, or you've made
yeah,
such an imprint that they'll never see you differently.
that's like a famous East Coast saying, is that people never change. People never change. A tiger can't shed its stripes. That's like a classic East Coast saying. Like everybody just kind of believes that. No, people can't change. You'll be like that forever. And I'm like, no, I
Mm-mm.
don't know. My thing has been like to kind of go against the grain my whole life, and try and like fight these kind of things and these concepts. I'm like, well, no, maybe people can change. Because I mean, if you also believe that people can't change, then you're believing that you can't change, or maybe you don't want to
Yeah,
change.
I always use the caterpillar analogy when people come at me with that.
Hmm. Getting into your cocoon.
Yeah, and the butterfly. Like, so a butterfly doesn't change.
Hmm. I wonder if butterflies change though. Like from the first time they're a butterfly. I wonder if they like
They're
the
small.
the way they. I mean, the way
They're
they look at.
smaller.
the way they look
I've
at
got
life.
I've got monarch butterflies in my backyard, and I've never noticed this before, but when they come out of the cocoon, they're pretty small. They're not like full grown.
Huh. So they get bigger, but I mean, do you think they go through like another growth process? Like, I'm a baby butterfly,
I don't know.
life is great, and then a bug flies by them, and they go through some kind of trauma. Like, oh, what was that? And a bird eats their friend. And, oh no, life isn't so great. Now I'm a hardened
PTSD
butterfly.
butterfly.
PTSD butterfly. I'm a hardened butterfly from the streets.
Oh,
Oh my,
I don't know. I was more referring to the process of,
the physical.
caterpillar to cocoon, chrysalis, that kind of cycle of the butterfly transformation.
I think it's amazing
But
how
I
they.
just see people change. They change every day.
Yeah. I mean, we're all changing, and no one seems to want to. I mean, a lot of people don't want to admit the fact that we're always changing. We're dropping skin cells everywhere. Everything's being replaced and renewed. And yeah, we're really not the same person. I mean, just by virtue of being here on the earth and not even doing any kind of practices or anything, you're going to change. You're going to. The environment is going to alter you and change you through your experiences.
Inevitably.
Inevitably.
I think my goal is conscious change and being very aware of the kind of change that I want to have and ignite in my life.
And also I see like helping other people, as you had mentioned in your
Absolutely. I mean, leveling up the level. If I can drill down to what I feel my core purpose is, it always goes back to helping raise conscious awareness on a mass scale,
right.
getting people to level up.
Level up. You know what? That is like what interested me the most when you had sent that little blurb about yourself, because I used to do stand-up comedy and I was on Twitter and that was my thing, hashtag level up. And I mean, in that context, it was trying to be more rude or more obnoxious or more shock factor, but also funny. And then at the end, I would put like hashtag level up. So when I saw you wrote level up, I was like, this is it. This girl's in. please come on my show. Geez, we're an hour into this thing. I didn't even say welcome to the show. So welcome, Paula Biltmore, to the show.
It's so easy to get caught up in the conversation, which to me is better, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's cool to just hit record and just go see where it goes.
It's easy when it's flowy. I like flowy conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even really pick a topic either. I mean, we had a loose topic, but it wasn't a refined topic. And I think that if you have another show, let's pick a topic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I could send you like my list of topics and we can pick from those if you want, or just pick a different one.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I don't know how much time you have left, if it was just the hour for you today, or if you wanted to keep going.
It is just the hour for me today, but I definitely would love to connect with you again, Jason. I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Well,
Definitely
like you
speaks
said,
to me.
Spread the awareness. The global consciousness will awaken and become part of the whole.
And I definitely appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Paula, for being here. And where can everybody reach you if they want to reach out to you?
If they want to reach out to me, they can just shoot me an email. It's my first and last name at gmail.com.
Oh, so you got that. You must have got that back in the day.
I got that really early on, yes. Everyone notices that now.
So Paula Biltmore at gmail.com. It's interesting how Gmail wants you to put a phone number now. Like you can't get an email account without actually having a phone, like a real phone plan, like in your name. It's kind of a weird thing they're doing. I just know
they're definitely making some changes there for sure.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning that because I had for another client, something I was working on, I had to open them up a Gmail account yesterday, and then I tried to use my phone number, and they said, "Nope, you have too many email accounts on your phone number." I was like, I need to reevaluate.
You've been cut off.
I'm cut off from Gmail. I need to reevaluate my life. I need a float tank session.
I didn't know there was a limit, Jason. How many email accounts do you have?
There's at least 12.
Okay, well, that's excessive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, yeah.
They're limiting the number of email accounts you can have now.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's one of those weird things. They just said you can't use this phone number anymore. Like, your limit is up. I'm like, all right. And there's probably more than 12.
You go to Walmart, get yourself a burner phone, my friend.
Just for Gmail accounts.
Just for Gmail, get a smart talk phone.
That's actually probably the best idea to get around this thing. And I even tried one of those.
I think they're like $15 or something. I don't know.
Well, see, the thing here in Canada is that we're pretty far behind everybody else. So it's like, I don't know why I just did a Texas accent for that. But we're like the hillbillies of North America. So our phone plans are still back in the 90s here. You still got to pay for everything.
You're like the nicest people on the planet.
Yeah, but why they gotta make us pay so much? That's why, because they know they can walk all over us. They're like, what are they gonna do? Thank us? Probably. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we don't have like unlimited data on our phones. We pay. You get like the most you can get is like 2 gigs of data on your phone plan, and then as soon as you go over that, you're paying out the wazoo for everything extra.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. Well, even when you have unlimited data, though, the amount that you pay for unlimited data is ridiculous.
Well, I'm talking like you're going to pay at least $90 a month to get talk and text and then 2 gigs of data. That's pretty standard for Canada.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at like a $400 a month phone bill. I do have 4 phones on that phone bill, but still.
Yeah. See, I would pay the extra $10 to get unlimited data on my phone.
Yeah, I do have unlimited data and text too.
Yeah.
And talk. It's unlimited everything.
I even tried one of those apps that you download that gives you a real phone number, and Gmail got wise to those. They said, no, you need a real phone number that you pay for every month. I was like, oh crap. And then even this app is based out of the States, and they keep advertising unlimited data, talk and text. You can get a SIM card in your phone with this app now. I'm like, oh my God, if only I lived a short distance across the water, I could have this. Because we can see the mountains in Washington from here, from the island. And like when you look on a map, you can't, it looks super far away.
That's right, you can.
Yeah. And I remember asking the first time I came here to visit, I was like, what's that? What's that island over there? And they're like, dude, that's Washington. I was like, what? Washington? I shouldn't be able to see it. They're like, yeah, it's like right there. I'm like, I could literally take a paddle boat and paddle over in a day. Probably less than a day I could paddle over. I mean, I know the Coast Guard would probably intercept, just trying to figure out why I'm trying to sneak into America.
At this point in time, yes. So just wait a couple years, please. I don't want to have to bail you out of jail.
American jail? No thanks. No thanks. Well, Paula, thank you so much again. This has been great.
All right, Jason. It was being with you.
Have a wonderful weekend. Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was some real science for y'all. What a great chat with Paula Biltmore. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this whole thing all over again to really allow it to sink into my poor little monkey brain. If you would like to connect with Paula on a professional level, her email is paulabiltmore@gmail.com. That's Biltmore. And I think you already know how to spell Gmail. So, ladies and gents, that's it for another exciting conversation that has happened right here beyond the mat. And so, to everyone out there, I bid you farewell until next time. Peace, love, and light. Namaste, and all that other good noise.